a trip around the museum. Nobody seems to have noticed that Mac and Pan have switched places. It's if Pan has always been there. And Mac was just a passing dream. Unless, of course, he comes back, but... So, the spiny dude in the office has basically said, that's great, you guys have cleaned out the rats that were in the storage room. And I'm going to have to move over for a second. And he comes out of his office. Oh, you're not in here yet. Sorry, didn't notice. But he comes out of his office and says, this is excellent. No more rats. Yeah, the rats have been getting in lately ever since the storage room was broken into last week. Roll perception check. Alright. So the spiny guy looks around and starts heading down this way, kind of towards the entrance to the exhibit hall. Devil's just gonna stay sitting over there since moving two people at once is not very fun. Well, yes it is, moving three people is necessary. No, Clyde's still alive. Oh, roasted as in, yeah. Yeah, the new guy is basically McCree from Overwatch. That's not a dragon, that's just a statue. Yeah, basically everything you see... Go ahead. Nope, just a statue. So, the spiny guy kind of like stands in the middle of the dark hall, not seeming to pay attention to the fact that it's very dark in here, and says, this hall represents the beginnings of Imlarin. We have various artifacts from the beginning of Mael and the beginning of Tuwala, which united back to almost 2,000 years ago to create the country we now live in and love, Imlarin. For a timeline's sake, it is currently on this particular country's year. It's 1957. Not to confuse with our 1957. Technology-wise, it is the same type of technology that we currently have here in 2018. But they basically, this country's been around for 1,957 years. So the 2,000 year, is coming up soon. So he's saying, pointing out like various, what would it be in there? It's just like various artifacts, mostly made out of medals and everything like that, the old styles. Are you okay? Hello? You okay? Okay, sorry. No, you got an explanation that made me think that something was wrong over there. Anyway, yeah, basically things made out of metal. Like nothing like too interesting because you'd find similar stuff in, if you left the country and went down to other countries at the moment. They're still working with the stuff. But it's like old metal swords and shields and paintings and a couple of paintings mostly like commissioned by various vampire masters and such at the time, showing like vampires or like lording it over humans and humanoids. The ones in Tawala though have pictures of like dragons, especially a red dragon. That's the found. Yes, but the but Tawala was pointing out that Tawala was actually founded by a red dragon. That the red dragon that the red dragon basically was like there's some of the artifacts from there basically show that the red dragon who founded the town basically was lording over a fishing village at the time, or like a tiny little port at the time, and then she's basically started defending the area from those who would steal her stuff and her little minions that she was you know getting supplies from and stuff, because they would be forced to feed her and everything like that. So eventually, like a town just grew up around it in her leadership basically, and then she eventually just took on a more active leadership role instead of a "I'm threatening you, so you must do this" sort of role to "I am protecting you, you should be doing these things for me" sort of role, which is basically just built the whole port over time, and eventually the port united with the vampire area down below and formed the country. No, more of a neutral, or maybe lawful evil, depending on your point of view with her. But basically, yeah, it started off as more chaotic, but kind of like she has a whole history, but it's like not really important for this game. All right. Well, he starts to explain that the red dragon, supposedly was as a hatchling, was some wizard's familiar. Basically, some powerful wizard was basically using a baby red dragon as a familiar, and this helped like teach her various forms of magic before he died and everything like that. And so he was using that to manipulate her form, like so she wasn't just I'm a huge dragon, I'm going to breathe fire down at you. She would occasionally present herself as more of a human, just wandering into the port, and that made her feel more of an ownership towards the port to begin with. And that she ruled over them, and there's red dragons in the area, and red dragon half-breeds, the Dragonborn, over the years that call upon her bloodline. So you find more red Dragonborn up in Tawala. Then he heads into the main hall and kind of like stops and looks at the sarcophagus and shakes his head. This exhibit was only procured recently. It was dug out of the ruins. And oh look, he points out the little blood stain that's on there. Some kid went and bled all over it. He shakes his head. No, the security guard found this kid in here and took him back to the school. And then he kind of goes around the edge and says, how did this get open? And kind of pokes at it. Julius is going to be Julius is going to be upset at this. He kind of looks at you. Julius, former mayor. Not that he cared. Oh, well, because he retired from running this town and left it to his daughter to be elected.
Sometimes my hear former
Well, anyway, he founded this museum too, and brought me in to run it. But he still uses it like his own personal reserves. You know, he actually gave away artifacts to various people in town. It's amazing, though. He's such a greedy man. I'm surprised he didn't just keep them all for himself. The finally creature shakes its head. He kind of pokes at the... It's interesting. There doesn't seem to be anything in the sarcophagus. I would have expected a body. You know, the remains of someone. I mean, there even appears to be ancient adipocere in here. Necromancy joke. Well, I haven't noticed any necromancers in here. He starts... The spiny dude just starts walking over towards the eastern hall. Now we come to a hall of antiquity. After the cataclysm ended, back around 5,000 years ago, there were groups of road builders who came down from Meeg all the way down throughout Eberus. Meeg, by the way, is the continent to the north of you, right across the sea, and the continent you're in is called Eberus. So, the road builders worshipped Woos, the goddess of water. One of the major representations of her has to do with the frogs. Though another is that statue over there. He kind of points out this statue of a human woman with one of those large, not exactly a bull, but it's kind of, it's a bull-like, but it's got a stand at the bottom. A giant chalice, perhaps? Perhaps that's the right word? Filled with water. This is a human representation of Woos. But people follow it. Lizard folk and humans following her under her guidance built the roads. Still ancient roads that are still used today, even now here in Imlarn. But I went all the way down to the Kolar region, which is the area far to the south of this continent. It's blocked off for main transportation because of the Kolar Mountains. It's a whole other story. But he's basically just talking about that and starts heading over towards this hall. Now we start coming to our more exclusive and special artifacts. More stuff that was dug up from the local ruins. Zaladin artifacts. It's believed that the very castle of Zaladin is somewhere underneath us. And many artifacts were dug up. Various old coats of arms, various armor suits, and of course the various dragon pendants. As you may or may not be aware, Zaladin was founded also around 2,000 years ago when a group of humans came across two dragons in the plains. A bronze dragon and a brass dragon. Now the dragons came up with an agreement with these people, giving them a space to form a capital city, which I believe is right here under our feet. as of course, as you might have noticed, were no longer plains, but a vast forest, and give them the option of taming their children, so, as it were, getting to ride on the backs of small dragons and keep them close.
Essentially a no-brainer track.
The spiny thing nods. And as you look over here, going over to this hall, we have a representation of one of the statues that was found. Most likely the statue stood right at the front of the castle to welcome people inside. Mm-hmm. Well, the Zelidians were very proud of their heritage. And even today, if you see coats of arms from noble houses, even here in Amlarn, that have dragons in the picture, many of them are from Zaladin originally, although some, of course, might be from Tuala, since Tuala also might uses a dragon motif at times. He kind of, looks around again. Come to think of it, he ponders. There's something else interesting in the storage room that I hadn't yet put out, that I wanted to curate. Comes over here and pulls out... Oops. Stupid GM layer overlay. Pulls out what appears to be another one of those tablets. Yes, here we go. Julius also found a bunch of these, and he wound up distributing them to some of his friends, or they just took them. It's hard to tell, you know? He shakes his head, sadly. You know how it is with the greedy. They think they own everything. Now, do you wish to read this tablet?
I do. Sure.
Alright, let me look at my... see which ones we have left. Well, actually, that one should be shown to... I'm just going to show these other ones to everyone. Now, this is one was already found. This is one you already found earlier. It's listed as being from the prison. That's one to... Oops. Sorry, stupid background noise. Seem to be echoing. Yeah, please don't whistle.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks. I get really easily distracted by background noise, especially when I'm echoing like that. So this is the one you just found.
Sure.
Yes, it's an interesting history, don't you think?
Oh, sure.
If I'm not mistaken, he says, cursing the words, I think this might even be in reference to the princess.
I believe you're correct.
Because it was never in the history of how she died. All we know for certain in the history is that she died a year before the capital was destroyed.
I believe just based on this that something happened there that the father actually brought her back.
Really? Brought her back? How fascinating.
It says here that you're there, the demons woke up from her too, together and turned back.
Ah, yes. Yes, that is most fascinating stuff. He kind of runs his hand along his spiky chin. Well, so I hope that all of this has educated you further.
Of course, sir.
Good, good. Even exterminators should learn a bit of culture. And you see him heading back towards his office.
All right. No, we have to find a way underneath the... Oh, wait. Exit and right over to...
Oh, yes. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Actually, is there... Do you have any pictures there by chance?
No, I'm afraid not. We have the storage room and the maintenance area.
Do you have no way of later?
No, no, not the way you speak, no.
Alright, thank you. That's barely underneath it. That's where it points.
And how do you know that? Clyde asks.
Because I just think it's vital which Polly took the boy to her there, which is Polly the throne room of the former royal castle, which already got it's true.
Clyde chuckles a bit. What? Clyde frowns. Anyway, he says, what makes you think that she'd want to be in the throne room? She never actually ruled this area.
No, but it's still her home. Did she want to go back home?
He thinks,
And go back to life?
my home? No, I don't really want to go back there.
When you want to go back?
Pardon, what were you saying? Well, Devil and I really don't call any place home. We kind of like the open road, you know? I couldn't make out a word you said, Pen. You kept roboting. What'd you say? Sorry. What, to where? I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Alright. The Cloud looks back towards the office where the Spiny seems to be hard at work on something. It's kind of shrugs. Up to you if you want to talk to him. Alright. Well, it looks like it's fairly heavy and has been set up there. If there's anything to move it, there's probably something all the way back in storage that was used to move it in the first place. Pun? Okay. Pun, what do you wish to do? What do you wish to ask him? It's not beneath us. It's, well, really close by. But no, I don't think they've excavated the throne room yet.
But hypothetically, if there was a way to get through, where would it be?
How should I know? I don't know the layout of the throne of the castle. The castle was destroyed almost 1,000 years ago.
Surely there must be a big site that's working for it at this point.
Well, yes, it's right near. It's right nearby. But you'd have to ask the foreman about that.
It shows obviously
All right. All right. You spot one of those little flatbed trucks thingies over in the corner. It looks like it's the kind of thing that's designed for a Minotaur ogre to handle, though. Basically, it's in the large size group instead of the small size group or even medium size group. So Clyde, pipes up. What do we even think that she wants the kid for anyway? Why did she take him? Well, more other than that.
She said that there was something special about his blood.
Hmm.
I just want something about it besides that for some kind of ritual.
Ritual? No, that sounds like the sort of thing you need a church or, temple for, or something like that. Not like you'll find any of those in Amloran.
That's why she wants to go back to the throne room. There is something in there like that.
What do we know about Zaladin's religions? He kind of looks over towards the office again. What was that, Kurt? What did you say, Kurt? Okay. Clyde suggested asking the Spiny about Zaladin's religions. He looks up from his desk. Yes? Well, they worshipped various deities, like most of the old cultures, but they had a big church somewhere in the north of town. He thinks for a moment. You know what? It was probably somewhere around where the mall site was put. This site was originally considered for the mall years and years ago until they found the ruins of the castle underneath of it. But if I look at some of the old survey maps, there might have been an old temple right where the mall is standing. I was actually thinking the same thing. Alright. So you said you wish to look for the dig site. Alright. Looks like gotta go back outside. Clyde comes out and looks at the large gate that says "No admittance," and you can see past it what looks like construction work, all the way in the back where it's impossible to see anything. Past that fence. Sure, why not? He heads over with his trusty lockpicks. Hey, probably that mayor guy would get upset. He laughs. Well, former mayor. It flaps open on the first try. And there we go. You hear Devil whimpering slightly as things just seem to darken around you. Oops. Cut and paste. Copy, paste, copy, paste. What? Yeah. So you copy and paste back in, you find yourselves inside the Shadowfen version of the castle. I don't think Pan's ever been here. Another spiny creature sitting on a throne kind of looks up. Didn't I see you before? Well, what brings you back here then? I should imagine so. He laughs a bit. I did not think that sarcophagus could hold her. That's what they did, you know. He kind of looks past Kurt and looks over at Clyde and kind of points at him and says that one's brother broke my daughter's heart and helped resecure him. And Clyde kind of raises his brows like, I don't know what he's talking about. That vault. Vault. My daughter was in love with him when she was alive. I had to basically keep him away when the day that she had to be executed. For her and the good of her soul, of course. Yes, obviously it did not. He basically goes on to say that necromancy was a capital crime in this country, and even nobility is not above the law. So, you know, if anybody else was going to be executed for the crime, she had to be executed for the crime of bringing back the dead. Why does that matter? All that matters is that she broke... It matters only that she broke the law. I can't have you or anyone else, not even her grandmother, telling me otherwise.
Sure, you wouldn't mind divulging if she did or didn't. Her.
It matters not. He shakes his head.
Now, then, I'm gonna have to ask permission of her. Conversation with but you heard about never actually answered my question.
And which was?
Worship.
Not on this plane, he confirms. I imagine she is somewhere in the spirit plane. The spirit plane, by the way, is ethereal. Forget what the plane alignment in the book for 5th edition. The two planes are not the Shadowfen and Feywild around the material plane. It's the Shadowfen and ethereal / aka the spirit plane around the material plane. Feywild is something else entirely. I wrote up an entire thing on that, but it's not relevant to this particular game. It's relevant to the other one, though. So you might get to do this. But anyway, he was saying, well, how did you get here? I see. A hole in reality. So I imagine that there's another place somewhere where you could transverse into the spirit realm, if that is your desire. But make no mistake, she is far more powerful now as something more than mortal.
Yeah, but we kind of have a choice.
He seems to be grinning. Han, do you have anything to add?
No.
Okay, so what do you guys do next? How so? He asks. But who might know? And as you're discussing this out in the hall, you hear a voice calling you from this room over here, saying, "Hey, you want to know why some of us can talk?" It calls out. No, that's the other. No, it's that's the other direction. It was coming from the opposite direction. The one on the eastern side. And as you look inside, you see basically what looks like a pile of armor and shields just laying on the floor. The shields and coat of arms and all that start to shimmer and move around, and a few eyes suddenly poke out on stalks from amid them. Oh, yes. You don't have much in the way of interesting things on you. No shields. It laughs. Well, I guess that's lucky for you. Nothing of you do I want. So, you were talking to the king, I take it? He is stubborn as ever, isn't he? Yes. Stubborn, arrogant, vain, prideful. That is what he is. And such things require you to maintain yourself, even after all else is stripped away. A tentacle snakes out from underneath the pile of armor and shields.
All I gotta say is kind of what they
No, this isn't the this isn't the hentai nightmare monster. It's got tentacles, but they're not hentai nightmare monster tentacles. The tentacle snakes. The tentacle snakes out towards Kurt, kind of like touching at touching at anything he might be wearing. Is he wearing anything on his feet? The tentacle thing tries to pry off his footgear. Maybe this. The tentacle slips into the footgear and just kind of seems to wear it. Very nice. Mine now. I like things. Yes, these shields are very shiny. No, I do not care to remember my name. I just am. Oh, you haven't figured that part out yet, have you? You've seen many creatures? And you know what they have in common? All these creatures that she made, that she touched. She took out their souls. Souls. And what? No, she took all of their souls. All of our souls. That's because usually when a soul is removed by most things, even a lich, the spirit goes with it, and the mind. They're usually all looked upon as one. But she does differently. She takes only the soul, leaving behind the rest. Yes, there's nothing else I want of you. I have no use for your flesh, no use for the rest of your clothing. Let us have something interesting for a moment, interesting flesh that I could have used. But alas. Yes, you do that. The those things are the shoes. It took both of them. Alright, so yeah, the best way to do this. Okay. So you step out there and once again you see that you're in the Shadowfen where all those undead moving back and forth, heading towards the temple to the north, the dragon on top of the temple, breathing fire down at them, to try to head off, stem the attack. The repeated events that you've seen before. Most likely the last day. What? Where you want what? Ah, okay. That's okay since you ran away from the blobby thing. But anyway, you're now outside looking around at the. This is new for Pan. And when you get outside, it's all dark as it is usually, but you're seeing ancient structures from old Zaladin instead of modern structures. And to the north, approximately where the mall was in your world, you see a temple standing. That's where the army of the undead seem to be charging towards, and there's a dragon sitting on top, breathing fire down at the undead. Yep, that's what you guys are seeing. Do you concur, Kurt? Alright. Yeah, the skeletons do not seem to pay any attention to you. I mean, after all, this does seem to be mostly an echo and not something real that's happening right now. Where is that? I'm about to. Hold on, I'm trying to figure out where I put it. Old things. Hold on, let me get rid of the old tokens before anybody moves. Yeah, that's why I stopped doing that. Eventually you guys make it up towards the temple and... stop moving, please. Thank you. And you move around to the back because the front is barred and the skeletons are pounding on it now. No, it looks like the same sort of people, minotaurs, kobolds, humans, a few orcs and such are letting you in. Alright. You hear the whimpers of all the ghostly people that are in here. Well, actually, no, they're not. They don't look like ghosts when they're in this temple. They look real, and you kind of look a little bit like ghosts when you're inside this temple. And you see what you saw before. All the people. There's a couple kobolds standing here, bracing the door. Some minotaurs coming over. There's an old minotaur. I think it's a priestess. Hold on, I have it in my notes. Yeah, there it is. Minotaur priestess. Trying to keep everybody calm. You see the statue of the kneeling woman that looks a lot like that Lich did when she was looking in her human form, but with longer hair and a much more innocent-looking face, if you know what I mean. The face of the Lich not look battle-hardened. This one looks as if never had seen a moment of combat. She's basically kneeling there with her head back, her hair falling down, her hands upraised with the fingers spread. And behind her is the statue of the Goddess of Death. The Goddess of Death has 4 arms. One hand is touching her basically her chest. 2 other hands are holding up. The other 3 hands, one of them is holding up what looks like an image of heaven, another one showing an image of hell, and the third showing the image of this world, Alaris, basically what they thought of it at the time. Basically symbolizing the 3 places that you would be going to once, in death. Like, heaven, hell, or rebirth. She looks up at you.
Hello.
Hello, have I seen you before? She asks.
Well, I heard
So much evil has happened. It looks like the end of days here. Oh, that would be a big question, now wouldn't it? The Minotaur priestess kind of looks around and looks at the statue and smiles slightly. I'm guessing the battlefield, perhaps. But after her death, this statue was made in her likeness to represent her in a more innocent time, or a version of her meant to portray innocence. Yes, but the demons destroyed it. It was at back somewhere. The Minotaur sighs.
What did she use the necromancy for? Did she use it for anything bad, or just...
I don't know. All I know for certain is that anyone caught using necromancy was executed. That is considered a foul magic because of what the Drow were using it for. There's a big wham, wham, wham on the front door, and everybody's cowering at this point. Which one of you has? Which one of you is holding the jewelry again? Okay. Yep. Yes, that it is. Meanwhile, both Bubba D and Fawn suddenly phase out. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of back and forth here, because this is part of my this was part of my planning thing. Give me 1 second. I need to put the other tokens on the board.
Okay.
Basically, I had to redesign this. Basically, because again, with only the 2 of you here, and I didn't want to have to restart it when we're right at the end scene. I have basically an RP scene rather than big battle type of scene, but it'll still be based on whether or not you guys you know, how you guys interact, because you could still end up losing it all, you know what I mean? It's not going to be 100% win. It's going to be probably a good chance of winning, but not necessarily, sort of thing. Yeah. Oops, wrong image. Actually, no, that would be the right image. Oh, and I forgot about the other thing. Ah. Alright. As Kurt is trying to figure out how to get up properly on the statue with the jewelry, Fawn and Bubba D appear in a well-lit church or temple of some kind with everything of light, but clearly there's something perverse going on, because there's a hulking demon standing there with his back turned to you, so it's not actually noticing you, and a skeleton in the same armor that the the Lich was wearing, with red glowing eyes, meaning this probably is the Lich, but without the human guys. There's also an altar standing in the middle of the space, basically right where the altar table is on the Shadowfen version, but there's no statue. Instead, there is this weird looks like a large crystal inside of some sort of box, suspended almost in front of it. There's an altar, and the boy is currently strapped to it, but the altar is a reverse one, so that it's got all sorts of bloodletting channels and everything. There's also a bunch of rubble scattered around behind that, in the same position where the statue of Quer is in the Shadowfen where Kurt now is standing. Along with the lights and the holy everything, which is currently being perverted, outside of it you can see, outside the door, instead of an army of skeletons coming down, you can see a bunch of what looks like gold sitting out there, and various weird ethereal spirit beings wandering back and forth, exchanging the gold. The demon?
Yeah.
The demon turns, its eyes glowing. Ah, intruders. The Lich is holding a dagger as the boy kind of struggles against the bonds over there. The demon comes over towards you guys. The demon laughs. He is a very special boy. You don't know what her name is. You just know what her mortal name was. From what you understand, that the mortal name was Megan. The Lich seems to be ignoring her. The demon kind of laughs and says, "You think she cares about that sort of thing? Maybe once when she was first dead, not anymore. Not when I helped her." You can tell, yeah, or something like that. If you need to do a religion check to figure out what kind of demon that is. Alright. Yeah, you know from looking at this that this is some kind of Baylor. That Baylors are kind of like the top of the pile when it comes to demons. And seeing one out here outside of the abyss is not a pleasant thing.
Shit.
Meanwhile, Kurt has seen his companions vanish in front of him, and he has the jewelry.
Kurt's like, God, fucking damn it. I'm good.
What are you trying to do? Where did they go? Says Clyde.
You were Clyde. I don't know. I'm kind of squeezed. I'm trying to get up on this statue.
Alright, I'll boost you. He walks over to the statue and, like, you know, offers his hands. Ugh. He's barely able to lift you. The altar or the statue?
On top of the altar.
Okay. Alright, well, there's no easy way of getting to the statue, of either statue, for that matter, from the altar itself.
Oh. Yeah, I'll just click the statue.
Alright. Statue has both arms outstretched, with fingers spread wide. Actually, no, her head's down, not back. You have to do it one at a time. Alright. Start with the ring. Meanwhile, the Baylor is talking to Fun, and the kid is crying out as one of his arms is cut by the Lich. The demon does not let you pass. He's got a fire whip. Kind of like puts his fire. Yeah, basically puts his fire whip out and puts down his wings and basically makes it impossible for you to go forward. And what reason would you have for that? Little abomination. What happened is well, you didn't arrive naturally, now did you? But she was in torment, just alone in her crypt after what her father did to her. And I... What other reason did her father have? He asks. Yes, and he is now paying for it. She stripped him of his soul once I made her better. The Lich kind of looks up from her work and makes a kind of a weird laugh of kinds. Megan is long gone. I am not Megan.
Call yourself whatever you want. It's still her.
Kurt, you put on one of the rings. Which piece of jewelry do you put on next? Yep. Yep. All right. Pan and Bubba D roll a roll perception check. Well, you're currently being distracted by a large demon, so... Okay. The demon kind of laughs and goes, Megan died that day when her father executed her. When I brought her back, she gained a new name, a new identity.
What's that mean?
Like I would tell you that.
Well, I'm curious.
Why, little dwarf, you look like you could be a snack.
Almost snapped.
You hear the boy cry out again.
Kind of like acting.
Yeah, and the Lich has preventative measures against that. Knowing religion, you'd know that about Liches.
Okay, with this overgrown bag of fire. Based on what Obadiah knows, she's getting more of the fact that she was murdered by her dad. Is that, what she did was not right, especially for what was known forever person. However, it did bring him with us.
The demon laughs. That random person you speak of. Yes. He ended up betraying her into that sarcophagus. The wretched Volt Nightstorm, for which she cursed him. Of course. No. No. Not then, you fool. After we'd already conquered her father. Meanwhile, Kurt, what do you do next? Alright. Roll perception checks, Bubba D and Pan. Alright. The crystal in the box that's in front of the altar on your map. it was part of the description. Before the altar, there is it looks like a large crystal that's surrounded in some kind of box. And then there's the altar, and then there's the broken bits of the statue of the goddess statue. The Baylor was pointing out that that you guys are wrong, that sort of thing, blah blah blah. He speaks Abyssal? Alrighty, go for it. Well, roll your deception check? Intimidate. Ooh. The Baylor actually looks confused upon this. He narrows his eyes. Who do you have working for you behind the scenes? Even the Lich pauses in her work. She doesn't have any lips, so she can't actually frown, but you get the distinct idea that she might be frowning. Then how am I supposed to believe you? The Baylor demands. Kurt. Okay, go ahead. The Baylor shoots back an abyssal. Ah, you mortal things always try to lie to us, to get the upper hand, to wriggle out of some sort of torment that's already been arranged. Ah, Kurt. Meanwhile, what do you do next? All right. Lich moves around from behind the kid in the altar and taps the Baylor on the shoulder. There's something going wrong with that. She points at the crystal. And the Baylor takes his eyes off of you guys to look over at it. They're trying to release it, he says gruffly. Constitution. Wow. Thankfully for you, they're not immune to charisma. Oops. 1d8. Holy crap! The Baylor looks very, very confused, but its eyes are kind of crossing. Meanwhile, because obviously this one is not being charmed by her, unlike that Varrock, for example. In fact, this one, the Lich actually seems to be outraged. He actually yells, it's like, Helga! What did you do to him? The Lich, in turn, is actually moving around the Baylor as well, mostly to try to get the Baylor's attention, which is actually leaving the kid unwatched.
Actually,
The kid is still tied to the altar, but his wounds start to stitch up. There's some weird black lines that almost look like mini scales in the spots where he was cut down the wrists. No, the Lich has it. Megan is not my name. Alright, well, I'll have to move you over there then. Roll a strength attack. Nope, they hold fast. Kurt. Meanwhile, Kurt, you're the last one's the necklace, yes? So you put the necklace on the statue, and it just starts to glow and shake. And the crystal right at Baba D's back is doing the same inside its container. Very noticeable now. You don't even need to roll a perception check on that. It's humming, it's making noise, and it's shaking back and forth. The kid's looking over at it. He's still chained down to the altar. Alright. Make your attack roll. Alright. One of the chains breaks loose. The kid is still tethered by one arm, though. As the thing continues to shake. The Lich, meanwhile, is attempting to break the charm's effect on her demon friend here.
and going to say to the Lord, why don't you show my deal with this?
As the Baylor attempts to strike, you see that the Lich is shimmering into several different appearances. I forget what the actual spell name is. Actually, it did speak. Sorry, I did actually spot a spell like this, but it's actually an effect of hers. She basically quadruples herself in a way. That basically a mirror image. There's multiple mirrors around of her. It's possible to tell which is which. And as the Baylor kind of like goes crazy. Do you wish to strike the thing again? Yeah, I'm waiting for your attack roll. And bam, the other. Why are you laughing? Yeah, that's kind of OP, but then again, I was expecting the demons to come with return block, and this one isn't simply because he's kind of on equal footing with the Lich. Instead of one of her minions, it's kind of like he's her equal, therefore she is not controlling him, therefore he can be charmed. So I'm like, uh-oh. Yeah. The kid meanwhile scrambles down from there as the crystal is seems to be expanding in its container, just glowing into white light. I don't know. I think we're in the spirit realm, he says, but he's like staring out at the shaking crystal. The Baylor in its kind of semi-controlled voice, it's kind of like a sleepy dream voice, that says something along the lines of, "You need to leave this plane. You just need to exit the door." The Lich is kind of yelling at you, but it's hard to make out what she's saying. And say what? Uh, the... Let's see, hold on. I'm just looking at something, hold on. The Baylor throws down its sword, and the Lich kind of jumps him at that point. The sword skids towards you, but as the kid and Bubba D go outside, they're instantly transported back to the other temple, where the statue is all the statue of the kneeling girl is now all lit up and glowing, just like that crystal was on the side that you saw. Pan, what do you do? You stole a Baylor's sword. Oh, joy. I'll tell you in a bit. For now, you arrive back in the Shadowfen temple, seeing the statue just kind of all lit up with light, just kind of turning from stone into pure light, with Kurt and Clyde kind of hanging out next to it. The kid kind of moves over at this point, heading up the aisle. And that's when the Lich kind of makes her way into here, throwing open the door and just stomping in. The kid backs up into the statue with the light just glowing and glowing. And the Lich kind of points at the kid and says, "You cannot hide from your own truth. I am cursing you to always speak the truth from now on." The kid's eyes go wide, even as the statue just completely disintegrates into something of pure light, at which point the Lich kind of focuses his gaze on that, What do you guys do? All right. Meanwhile, the light resolves itself into that of a young woman, very much like the young woman that that turned out to be the Lich that you saw earlier, except with longer hair, longer than this picture, and lighter hair for that matter, with the same blue eyes. The image kind of like looks back at Bubba D and kind of smiles slightly, and the Lich kind of is yelling unintelligibly, saying, "No, no, 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 no." The Lich kind of looks over and says, "No, he wasn't. He wasn't there." Well, my father is mistaken. She grumbles, but she's barely paying attention to any of that because of the girl kind of half composed of light standing there. The kid, meanwhile, is and she kind of looks back, and her blue eyes kind of like shining. It's like, "I'll take care of all this. Don't worry." Yeah, this definitely would have been more entertaining if there was more people, but, that's what happens if... Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. Meanwhile, as those two, as those two basically square off against each other, you and the rest of your party kind of rematerialize back in Pine Valley. And, well, actually, no, first you materialize outside of the temple and see basically everything just shaking around you. The skeletons and other undead stop moving and kind of like fall apart. See the castle shaking. You see the people that were in the temple, turning back into a ghost form. And it's like everything around you is just kind of disintegrating, vanishing, and it's kind of like pulling up into the sky. And suddenly you find yourself not in the Shadowfen on Zaladin streets, but there in Pine Valley, now on the street in front of the mall. Everything is shaking around you. The buildings are shaking. People are streaming out from inside the tavern. You see some more like stumble out of the apartments over here. And pretty much, let's see, where else would they be coming from? And a couple more from the office complex. Yeah. Yeah, I had several more maps prepared, and some other places that actually didn't have the maps prepared yet, but all ready for that, but yeah. So everybody's streaming out from the buildings that are still alive and intact, and everything's shaking. You hear the aberrations all screaming at the sky as they seem to be sucked up into a great whirlpool up on top of you. The kid kind of like clings to you guys. It's everybody needs to like be huddling together to keep still as the random weird dogs and the birds and are all being pulled into a vortex of some kind. And as this is happening, what were you saying?
Oh, I was going to say, like, so his mother is definitely in that alone. Right. They cover that way. At this point in this time here, by that turn,
It looks like only the aberrations are being sucked up and everything. Like everything's being sucked away. And finally the skies begin to lighten up. The dawn suddenly breaks over everything. It's like full daylight all of a sudden, and it's been dark here for the longest time. Ah, crap. Where did Jordan go? I'll wait till Jordan comes back to finish this off. Well, because it's the finale of the adventure, so it's like, Jordan doesn't want to miss that. But, if there'd been a full party, you would have had some more battles with demons and whatnot. And other things would have been attacking you as you made your way, to wherever you need to go. And that was only one of several possible endings that I've been working on. Yeah, I'm surprised at that. It's like, what the fuck? You rolled a nat 20 on that, and there's nothing in the demon's makeup or story that says the demon can't be deceived. So it's like the demon can be talked into sense. But yeah, there's like several other endings, including one that involves the tablets. Like if you put all the tablets together, you get a name. Because she doesn't listen when people are calling her Megan. It's like you can't use the deception on her if you're referring to her as Megan or anything like that. Because she isn't Megan anymore. Megan is kind of more of the soul that you rescued, though that soul kind of goes by another name, but there's also several versions of that can happen. And one of them is done to the soundtrack the soundtrack of The Great Convergence from Dark Crystal.
Yeah, the last one I was
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this ending you're seeing right now is sent to either one of these of the following ending soundtrack things. The end, once and for all, from Mass Effect 3, and Your Father Would Have Been Proud of You from Rogue One. Just play either one of those tracks, and you kind of get the idea of what I'm going for. I'll wait 2 more minutes for Jordan to rejoin, and then I'll just finish it up and hope that Jordan watches the YouTube video. Yeah. Well, part of it's because what's about to be shown is more going to be something that Jordan will want to react to than anyone else. But there's going to be several other hooks at playing Pine Valley again. Being a nib is only one of them. Another one will be working for Immaru, just like in Skeleton Army. In Immaru, it'll be either, going into Pine Valley intentionally to look for the kid, or actually the CEO going, my third-born son, Clyde, has decided to get himself into trouble down in Pine Valley, and now I can't hear anything from there. Please go and investigate. He's probably in the prison, sort of thing. That was one of...
They'll be like, hey, not really a friend. Close enough.
No, that's like one of several starting positions for Clyde. Like, Clyde has multiple starting positions. The kid has several starting positions. The Lich has several starting positions, and also marks of the Lich will show up at when XYZ happens if they haven't already been encountered. Yeah. Well, she sicked a rock on you guys. I had fun with the Varrock in Curse of Strahd. No. I have no plans to release a Tarrasque. In fact, I'm listening right now to the D&D stories by T. the Writer. And I'm currently on the third story, which is involving releasing a Tarrasque to fight a giant world-killing god. And I was like, that sounds like a fun story based on the previous party dying out because their GM was an idiot. Yeah. Oh no. Okay. Well, you're going insane now. Anyway, so let's just finish this up for YouTube then. So the sky lightens up and suddenly it's daylight. All the aberrations are gone. And you notice that it's surrounding the town basically. And coming into the town, you see choppers flying overhead all of a sudden, and just various troopers coming in, and people are you can hear people cheering down from the watering hole, but it's like the government's moving in at this point and is going to go debrief everybody that's kind of involved in all this. But among the various operatives, you also recognize uniforms of people in the defense contractors known as the Imru Corp. Among them, Jordan's back! Yay! Until Jordan says something. It's okay. So it's now full dawn. Sorry, not dawn. Full daylight. It's no longer dark. It's no longer locked in, and there's now choppers flying overhead. People are cheering from the watering hole and other places where people actually had survived and come out when the shaking started. The aberrations are all gone. They've been sucked up into some sort of vortex and have vanished. And suddenly the entire town seems to be surrounded by the government and the defense contractors, the Imru Corp, which you, Jordan, your character, recognizes the uniform because you remember them from when you were a kid. Okay. So... And the kid kind of yells out for you to please don't charge them. They will shoot you up full of holes if you do. They're far away. away. They're like, a great distance. But they're close enough to shoot you if you were charging with a weapon. So I would say roll a will save, see if you charge them or not. Because charging them is instant death for your character, as the military, thinking you're a threat, would be firing bullets at you. If you are serious about charging them, then yes. Okay, good. I didn't want your character to die. I like your character. Anyway. The government's coming in. You see various NIB and other officials coming in, including Kurt, one of the bosses of the NIB, Rihanna Bloodrose. She's there, standing side by side with Dr. Richard Serrier, who Jordan would recognize. And Clyde just kind of groans when he sees him, and the kid kind of brightens up and says, "Hey, it's the duck." He kind of waves at him. My godfather, And Richard does seem to recognize you. There's a flash of recognition when he looks at you, Pan. But he immediately looks away from you to kind of like gaze down at the kid, and then looking over towards his son, Clyde, and then at the dwarf and the gnome. Rihanna, meanwhile, is looking purely at Kurt, because you're the one wearing a NIB uniform, still sort of part of it, not recognizable enough. It says your report. She immediately talks to you about that, since she figures she can get a straight answer out of you. Hi, Lara. Granted, she says. Richard, meanwhile, is like looking at his son, but then talking to the kid. It says basically how worried your parents are about you. Max has been bedridden for a while and really needs you home. Your mom's been going crazy about all this. And the kid starts to say something like, the sort of thing you wouldn't expect a kid to say, like, saying, like, hey, I just didn't want to see my father that sick, and I felt like wandering around, and then he kind of like, his eyebrows suddenly raise up, and he clamps a hand over his mouth. Richard kind of like looks over at. He's not it sort of. Well, yeah, basically. Basically how it works is that this character, I created him originally as an adult and as a father to another character of mine, and I figured out that one of his quirks early on is that he always tells the truth for some reason, and I couldn't figure out why. So when I was backtracking him down to here in Pine Valley, I suddenly realized, oh, the Lich cursed him. That's why he can only ever tell the truth. That's why he's stuck with telling the truth. The Lich freaking cursed him. But yeah, basically like that. But it's not like the invention of lying where he's compelled to tell the truth. But anything he says has to be true as far as he knows. Somebody else can lie to him, and he can repeat that as that lie, but he can't knowingly lie. Mm-hmm. Richard kind of like looks over at Fawn and says, "I know you. You have been away for a very long time, child." Well, I suppose you do not care for me. Stories your mother told, I imagine. By the way, your mother, elf, high elf, fae, what? I forget. Is your mother an elf, a high elf, or a fae elf? Which one was she again? Okay. Yeah, but I was trying to remember. I was just trying to remember if she was fae or high. I couldn't remember which. Because there's it. Oh, awesome. Aww. But basically, he basically is like saying, like, I did try to help her. I just requested all of that time to study, and I kept her in a nice place. It wasn't like she was, being kept in a tiny little cage like some people might claim. Clyde's now giving you looks, but he's just kind of standing there with Devil. Yes, the awkward silence. Rihanna's kind of like looking at all this and just shaking her head. And going, well, Kurt, you should just take a nice long vacation, come back to work, and you can finish filing all the reports on this then. We've got a lot to work to do here. That's a pity. Now, what about your companions here? She looks over at the dwarf and at Fan. Aw, impulsive one, huh? She nods and then looks runs a hand through her blood red hair and stares at Fawn with her green eyes. So what about you? What do you do for work? What brought you here? And she kind of like gives a side eye towards Richard. That's I heard something about Imaru and its projects, but what about your take? I imagine you don't have a good association with them. She kind of grins, showing a little bit of her fang, because she's part vampire. She's... Oh, sorry. She's asking... She basically doesn't seem to, necessarily care for Imru Corp, but she's asking what your plans are now. She says she doesn't think that you don't have any, belonging with them since, you clearly don't like them. And so, what are you planning on doing now? nothing about work, she asks? Nothing to make money on? Bars. Bar D type. Storyteller. Well, she kind of holds up a hand. Unfortunately, we really need to keep most of what happened here under wraps. They wouldn't necessarily be able to make money off of all that. It would be in the nation's best interest to not go sharing it around right now. We still don't know exactly if it's contained or not. We don't want people thinking that they can do what they did here elsewhere. You mean one with breasts? She asks. Because breasts are she says, one with breasts, she asks, because breasts are fairly rare in Dragonborn. I have not, but we can ask around, see if anyone matching such a description has shown up arrested or anything. Communicate with the local police offices. So you have no interest in providing for your own future. All right. She looks back at Kurt. You rest up and get back into the office. You'll be reporting to me next time you make it back in. Directly. You mean here in town? Doesn't look likely, she shakes her head, looking, down the town with all the destruction and everything like that. She nods. I'll see that it gets filed. We'll be checking everywhere around to see if there's any more survivors that are stuck. But it doesn't look like there are that many. Question? Oh, you're asking on a character. Yeah, I was planning on a continuation for a few years, so more like 10 years down the road. When the kid's older, when he's 18, I was planning on one that was going to go into the Curse of Strahd. Yeah, your dragon's awesome. That Shard Breath is just very OP. It is very OP, but, in this case it worked out well, so. Alright, if you guys are done, I will finish this off for YouTube, and we can continue to talk about for a next game.